Welcome, everybody. I am excited to be here with Karen Davis today for the Coaches Chronicle. Karen, welcome. I'm so glad to meet with you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Happy to be here.
Yeah, let's dive right in. So, what was it that led you into this fabulous and sometimes mysterious world of coaching?
Going back to 2006, 2007, I had left the workplace. I was an executive inside an advertising firm, and they were being acquired by Ogilvy, and they wanted me to sign a 7-year non-compete, and I didn't want to do that. So I started consulting, and I did some pro bono work for the Boulder Housing and Authority, and I was able to pull off something for their annual event that others could not do. And one of the board members approached me and asked me if I'd ever coached before. And I hadn't, but I was very interested. And so I started coaching some the top potentials within an organization. So
Wow, what a
that,
gift. Yeah.
yeah. And I very quickly ran out and got every book I could find on coaching because I honestly did not understand the difference between coaching and consulting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited to get into your book in a little bit. You say that you coach from both your head and your heart. How do you define that balance in practice? And where do you see coaches most often lean too far one way?
Well, the head and the heart, I really look at the heart as that intuition, that ability to allow questions to arise. And the head is really the arc of the coaching time. So I'm an example is I'm working on my MCC, my master's right now. And I've had to unlearn some things. It's been quite humbling, the process. And it's about really being with that person and a lot more of the soul line focus versus that goal line. So
Mm,
a lot of the inner work in terms of who is your client being? What is the story that's being created? So,
beautiful.
yeah.
After 25 years in executive and managerial roles, was there an inner shift that had to happen before you could fully step into being a coach?
Yes, absolutely. I hired my first coach in 2007, and I've been consistently coached since that time. So that was my own personal journey. And then I've done so much work. So the Hoffman Institute, on being a leader with Werner Erhard and the group out of Harvard University, Byron Katie, George Pransky, Linda Pransky. So I am definitely a believer. I've worked with Rich Litvin. Rich says you can only take your client as deep as you have gone yourself. And I'm a huge believer in that. And so by me continuing to do my work and to be coached on my own blind spots that I don't see, both with my clients and with myself, has been absolutely pivotal.
Mm. How would you say your corporate leadership background uniquely shaped the way you work with senior executives today?
I would say that it really gives me a lot of empathy in terms of the challenges that they face. I faced a lot of challenges when I was in the workplace, some political, some otherwise. And so, really getting into my client's world, understanding what they're up against, is extremely, extremely helpful. And most of my career was in technology. And so when I work with technology companies, I also have that opportunity to understand all their acronyms, everything that happens inside large organizations. So
And you mentioned what they're up against. What are some of the through lines you see across multiple executives? What are they facing that seems to be a common thread?
common threads would be around communication, around listening to their teams, appreciation. slowing down and appreciating their teams. Um, how to manage up the organization, down and across within the organization. And this is one that I learned from Steve Chandler, which is on expectations versus agreements. Just about every executive coach I've ever worked with, I'm teaching that fundamental principle around how to create really strong agreements and as opposed to having expectations.
Hmm.
So those are some of the things.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to dive into the topic of ontological coaching with you. So you
Yes.
study at the Newfield Network and come from an ontological coaching lineage. First, can you define what ontological coaching is for those that may be unfamiliar? And then what would you say most coaches might misunderstand about ontological coaching?
Uh, well, first of all, the definition is the metaphysical study of what it is to be in the world. And in terms of what some coaches might miss, ontological coaching is really about how we think, how we feel, so moods and emotions, and then language and the importance of deeply listening to your client's language. And that I would say the MCC coaching that I'm doing now is probably the closest to that ontological way of coaching in terms of really deeply listening to your clients and not addressing the problem per se, but how that individual is seeing that problem.
Hmm. As soon as you say the word metaphysical, which I love, it really has the potential to kind of border on the spiritual or woo-woo. Do you ever get pushback on that?
I think my clients love that I am a little bit woo-woo, that I am very, very intuitive, and that I just am there and I can work both that soul line, that inner who they're being, and as well as that goal line.
Hmm.
So I think that's what they love in our work together. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. How would you say that working with language, mood, and physiology changed the depth of results clients experience?
How would I say? I would say that it opens them up to new ways of seeing themselves and new ways of showing up in the world. So actions that they take, uh, and as opposed to just operating from the thinking and what the ego is saying to do. That really kind of stepping outside of the story that the ego has created, which helps them feel safe, and focusing in on what what else might there be? What other action or path might I go down?
Does Would you say that understanding the ego is something that's a little bit unfamiliar for some executives when they first start coaching? The idea that they're being led by some other version of themselves?
Yes, I would say so, absolutely, Jonathan, that they believe that outside circumstances create their world. And you and I know that the outside circumstances do not create their world. It's the thinking that actually creates it. And I've watched the light bulb go off, both when I work with executives as well as entrepreneurs and some coaches even, where no, 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 you don't understand. It was when this happened that I felt this way. No, no, you felt this way, and that just happened to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. As within, so without.
Mm.
You're known for asking powerful, intuitive questions that create instant insight. How would you say a coach develops that level of discernment?
That level of discernment or that level of intuition?
Okay, I like intuition, sure.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I believe that intuition is like a muscle that you build over time. Before we started the recording, I shared an example of an intuitive hit that I had. And I said, and I jumped on it before the ego got involved and rationalized everything. Well, the same is true in coaching. If you can slow down and be very, very present with your client that you're coaching, then the questions will come through you. They'll be sourced through you. And and as long as you aren't there doubting that question, then you ask that question and then they respond and then the next question comes through you. You're not thinking of what is the next question. It arises from within.
What's the difference between a clever coaching question and a transformational one?
I think a transformational question is the one I just described. And a clever coaching question is one that you may have learned in coaching school or that you belong to a group and it comes from a list and you keep it there in front of you. And you refer to it, and it may not even have anything to do with what the client just said. There you
Yeah,
go.
when looking at your book and looking at all the different coaching books that exist out there, there are a few that do very well that are coaching questions, which I think appeal to probably newer coaches that are looking for a script or some kind of, some strategy to follow versus trusting the intuition like you describe. And so, yeah, I think it's like in the pregnant pause, here comes this beautiful question that arises from my connection and my presence with this client.
Yeah. And, I want to say for all the new coaches that are out there, absolutely. So go ahead and start with a list. We all started there. And so, and allow it to move from the forefront to the background and then all the way back away. And then just allow those questions to arise from within. Yeah.
Yeah, not to poo-poo on having a framework or some kind of
Right.
system that allows you to feel comfortable as you start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your practice is almost entirely focused on deep one-on-one coaching. Why do
Mhm.
you believe this format remains so powerful in a group-heavy coaching industry?
Yeah. I've done groups. I've done several groups actually, and I always pivot to the one-on-one. That's what I love most. And I have coached coaches who coach one-on-one. They also do groups. They do teamwork. They teach. And I've chosen really to have my focus be very laser focused doing deep one-on-one coaching. Not to say that I may not do a group again, but I love that one-on-one work.
What is it about one-on-one that is so alive in you?
I think it's the potential for deep, deep transformation. Uh, I have clients who fly in from around the world to be with me for 2 days in my accelerators, and and the name is a little bit deceiving because it's really the time where we slow down and we focus and there's no distractions. And by doing that, it actually creates acceleration for them. So the 2 days are not accelerated, it's actually the opposite. And I think that really gives the client that opportunity for very, very deep transformation. So sometimes I have clients who will come in for 2 or 3 accelerators in a year of our one-on-one coaching program. So,
Reminds me of the adage of slow down to speed up.
mhm, absolutely.
What tells you a client is truly ready for deep work rather than surface level change?
Well, I follow the prosperous coach process, which is to slow down on the front end. And I have an introductory conversation with the potential client. And from there, if I feel like, okay, yeah, we might be a really great fit for one another, then I offer a coaching session, and the coaching session where that's all we do is coach, so that both of us can get a really good idea for how we work together, the chemistry. Am I able to create impact? Are they able to see things a little bit differently bef after they've come in than they did before they came into the coaching? And so I really think that's important to walk through with a potential client. I work with them typically for a year. And so then we'll have a conversation, which is a third conversation about what it would be like to work together. But only after all those steps, I've seen, yeah, some things about them that are truly unique and inspiring for me.
Okay, so this brings me to another question, which is we're sometimes sold or told or taught in the coaching industry by potentially sales coaches that we shouldn't coach clients in the beginning because we end up solving their problems and they don't want to work with us. Tell me about your approach to that.
Uh, I have I can't say that I've completely solved a client's problems in just one session. That I really believe that it takes time. In fact, I've worked with clients for 6 years, 7 years, and beyond. And so, um, we're constantly evolving and growing. Thus, the reason I've had a coach all these years. And so I believe that true coaching doesn't get solved in a single session, it gets solved over time. And that as things are progressing, that my client is growing and they want more and they want to create more and they progress, right? So a lot can be built with the momentum that gets created inside of coaching. So
Absolutely.
I don't ascribe to that, in other words.
Yeah, no, and what I love about it is it's so client focused and it's not about trying to create a sale. It's really deeply in
Service.
service. Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely.
All right, let's circle back on these accelerators. So you offer 2-day accelerators. They're on an urban farm, and I'm curious to know how does the environment influence nervous system safety and client breakthroughs?
Yes. Well, one thing I need to correct, Jonathan, is that I need to update my website, and they're no longer on an urban farm. That's where I used to
Okay.
be back in 2013 up until COVID. And what they're here inside the lower level of my home, which is this beautiful space. I have a separate wraparound sidewalk, and uh, the 2 days together. Neither of us know exactly what is going to be created during those 2 days. We might have an idea, but it's just a matter of being really open those 2 days and allowing whatever is going to get created to be created. Um, Sometimes there might be a little bit of a framework. Sometimes we might do planning, like, do 5-year planning, come back to the present, things like that. But other times it can be just sitting across from each other and coaching and sharing and facilitating. There's a mix and allow whatever is going to happen to happen.
Yeah. Sounds somewhat magical. Um, what would you say happens in those immersive containers that simply can't or doesn't necessarily happen in a weekly session?
Yeah. So inside the accelerators, it's about that slowing down that I mentioned earlier, focusing on, what they want to create, removing the distraction of their life, their day to day. And the end result is really that acceleration. And so when we can just spend that devoted time with another human being, and I run mine for consistent hours. So I'll have the lunches prepared, they're in the refrigerator down there, and we are working through lunch. There's no disruptions, there's no going out to lunch. It's uninterrupted time where we can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And in a single coaching session, you have an hour, maybe 90 minutes, and just isn't the same continuity of time to be able to create that momentum for deep transformation that you want to create.
Yeah. Let's talk about your book, How to Get the Most Out of Coaching, a client's guide for optimizing the coaching experience. You're focused on helping clients get a higher return on their coaching investment. So what would you say many clients do that unintentionally slows their progress?
Well, everything. They come in, and if they've never been coached before, or if they have been coached before, they often don't know how they can get the most out of that experience. And they don't know the questions to ask. They don't know how to come in prepared. They don't know what to do in between sessions or after their sessions. And in our book that I wrote, co-authored with Alex Mill, we go through everything in terms of here's how you create a coaching roadmap. Here's how you become more coachable. Here's the agreements you want to create with your coach. And these are the agreements your coach might want to make with you, right? And here's how to be open and vulnerable. Here's how to integrate your sessions. So those are just some of the chapters. We have a whole chapter on what might derail a coaching session. And we go through the top derailers that we've seen inside a coaching session. So it's really about teaching our clients. And I'm convinced this is why coaches buy our book in bulk and give it to their clients, is so that the more our clients understand how to be a good client, the greater the impact, the greater the transformation, the longer the engagement, and the more results that get created.
Is there a top derailer?
Uh, I don't think there's a top derailer. There's one that I see that's quite common, which is kind of deflecting and telling stories about someone else other than yourself. And so, to move that coaching focus over to this person over here versus myself.
Mm, yep. What responsibility do clients need to reclaim if they want coaching to actually change their lives?
Mm, I'm going to say this, and I know it's controversial, but making coaching your number one priority, which actually means making yourself your number one priority. So, and
What's controversial about that?
well, I asked that question. So I send out the book ahead of time before I do that first experience, even. And I asked them to respond back to 10 questions that I have. And one of the questions is, can you make coaching your number one priority? And they always respond, after my family, after my job, after my this, after this, after this. And so, as opposed to, I've had only a handful say, absolutely, because when I do that, I'm putting myself first. Yeah.
Mm. You mentioned already you continue to invest heavily in your own coaching and mentorship. What has being coach taught you about being a better coach?
Oh, goodness. You know, I spent, I think, almost 11 years working with Steve Chandler, and I was heavily influenced by Steve. And and the man is just an absolute. I love this man, and he's an absolute saint. And there were a few times that I can reflect on in working with Steve where I definitely needed to be kind of woken up, lapped awake, let's just say. And I'm so grateful for those times. And I, in turn, want to be that for my clients, that person in their life who believes in them unrelentlessly and is willing to say the difficult things that need to be said with permission, of course.
I can tell that our viewers, readers, listeners will be curious to know what does that look like when you need to be bumped.
Uh, what does that look like? Well, let's just say that what that looked like was I wasn't getting it. And Steve had to be very forceful and clear. And then after our lunch break, I was in a group with Steve and some other coaches. He came back with his guitar and sang a song to me, which was the epitome of the point he was trying to make.
Beautiful.
So even coaches have a hard time seeing their own blind spots, and me being one of them for sure.
Amen. How do you decide who to learn from at this stage in your career?
I look for people who are out there doing things differently. Uh, and right now, I'm working with a coach who received her MCC, her master's back in 2013. And she is tough as nails. She's a very hard teacher, and she would, wave over there and go, "Oh yeah." And so she's uh she's she's really helping me. I'm At first I wasn't liking it at all, but I'm learning and growing. And so I look for teachers out there who are really blazing a trail in a direction that I want to go in. Yeah.
Are you open to sharing what gap in your framework, delivery, self, whatever felt like it was missing in this stage in your career?
Um, well, the example in working with my MCC mentor coach, I'm very well trained in the professional and the PCC.
Mm,
And I keep leaning back to some of the PCC ways, and that is not acceptable at all when you're going for your MCC. And they've raised the bar recently. So now the bar is even higher. And so, yeah, it's all good. Loving it. Yeah.
yeah. You've said your deepest purpose is to awaken more love, care, and humanity inside the workplace. What does that look like tangibly inside organizations?
Uh, that's so my overall purpose is to bring more love, care, kindness, and humanity into the workplace. I created that back in 2007. And those words I chose very, very specifically because I felt like when I was in the workplace, at times, some of those things were not occurring. And I was part of leadership. And so uh, I had kind of a firsthand, you know, sighting of that. And so I want to work with people who I know have those values and that there's a ripple effect occurring, whether it's an entrepreneur that I'm working with or whether it's an executive inside a Fortune 50 company. And that everyone that they're in contact with is being impacted by the work that we have done together.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate appreciate you, and I appreciate the service that you're providing by getting this out to the coaching community.
Thank you. How can coaches hold high standards without losing compassion or heart?
Well, I'm going to go to agreements. I think it's very important to establish agreements on the front end of a relationship, a coaching relationship with a client. And those high standards are created within those agreements. And then as you progress with your client, if the client is not able to adhere to one of the agreements that you co-created with them, then you're pointing at the agreement, not the client. Right? So if you have an agreement with a client that they'll arrive on time for sessions, and that what that means is if it's on Zoom, they arrive 5 minutes early. If it's a phone call, they call on the minute, not a minute later or two. That you're that clear on the front end. And then you get maybe to week, session 4, session 6, and they're not showing up on time, then you're able to point back to the agreement and say, look, where else are you showing up 1 or 2 minutes late or 5 minutes late? And yes, that may be acceptable inside your organization, but is it acceptable within you, within your integrity and who you want to be? And so it's those types of conversations and pointing back to the agreements. And I mentioned time because that's one of the most common ones that I know that coaches struggle with.
Certainly. Yeah. For coaches who are technically skilled but feel something is missing in their work, what would you invite them to explore next?
So for coaches who are technically skilled, so meaning that they've gone through coach training, perhaps. Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah, like certified, can ask
Mhm.
questions, and there's maybe a greater level of oomph that could
Yeah.
be.
Well, I'm a big believer of doing a lot of coaching. So I call it the coaching rep, build that muscle. And then be coached. Make sure that you're hiring a coach who is either just above you or even, you know, on the same level as you. Whatever you can afford, lean into that and have that coach there that is committed to you, that you're committed to. And then stay on the path of coaching. Look for other programs that are out there. There's so many different coaching programs and get involved. If you can't afford to hire a coach, create a group of peers that you can collaborate with. Uh, so there's so many ways that you can advance in coaching. And I'm always reading books. There's so many different resources out there. Yeah,
Get
it's
your
really, pardon me,
get your reps in.
get your reps in. Exactly.
Karen, from your vantage point, working with elite coaches and executives, what do the most in-demand coaches embody that other coaches often overlook or may be missing?
So the most in demand, can you repeat the question? Let me make sure.
Yeah. From your vantage point, working with elite coaches and executives, what do the most in-demand coaches embody that other coaches often overlook?
I think the most in demand coaches have the heart of service as I'm going to speak to one particular coach that I've worked with for years, and he is so in demand, does not have a website, and he is always in service. Whether it's someone down the street, whether it is someone that's part of a group that he's part of, whether it's someone he met 10 years ago, someone that's part of his family, he is always there and of service to them. And uh, this man has a constant wait list for his service, and he's deeply, deeply curious.
Mm,
Yeah.
beautiful skill to have, to or value to have. Last question for you, I think. We'll see. If you could give one piece of advice to a new coach entering the industry today, what would it be?
I would say, sorry, Jonathan, I'm going through several
Yeah,
different,
take your time.
there's so many things I would say to a new coach. But the biggest thing I would say is find a coach or a mentor to help guide you.
Mm, sound advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Karen, I want to thank you so much for your time. It's clear that you're creating some really beautiful ripples in the world yourself. And I'm excited to know you. I'm excited that you're here on the Coaches Chronicle with us. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Awesome.